Hi, my name is Gabrielle Bryson. I am the QA and Training Director for ViaQuest. If you are watching this training, it is due to the incident hotline or your supervisor feeling that you need a reeducation on reporting guidelines. So this will be a quick training to ensure that moving forward, that you are either following the reporting time frames or that you're reporting incidents appropriately. So, what's really important here is if you do not have what should I report business card, please reach out to your QA and training trainer in your region, or please reach out to your clinical director or state director or executive director to get a copy for you. We have many different copies, and we want to make sure that moving forward, you are reporting incidents in a timely manner. And that is a little cheat sheet for you to ensure that you know what is to report and that you have the number to report and the time frames of reporting. Also, maybe you weren't completing the incident notification form correctly. At the end of this module, you should be able to download a copy of this. You should already have the most recent copy, but just in case, you can get that from this training also. At the end of this training, we'll also go through each section of the incident notification form to ensure that you're also filling that out correctly. So first, we're going to reinforce the reporting guidelines timeframes. If you have not already, please save this phone number to your personal number and save it as the incident hotline or BPBS hotline, or however you'd like to save it. This is always going to be step one. If there's any type of incident, you're going to call this number, 844-487-1265. You'll need to make sure that you're making this call as soon as possible, making sure that you and the client are safe. And it needs to be done within 1 hour of being notified of the incident. If you call and nobody answers, please leave a voicemail. This allows multiple people who are on the incident hotline committee to be able to potentially call you back. The hotline is for across the state, so there could potentially be more than one person who's calling at one time. The voicemail allows us to know that there is more than one person, or the person on the incident hotline, the primary person, is unable to answer. Leaving your name and number saying, "Hi, my name is Gabby. I have an incident that I really need to talk to someone to about. My number is, and please call me back." So leaving that type of information, making sure there's no PHI, all of that details of the incidents can be disclosed once you get them on the phone. If unfortunately maybe they don't answer within a timely manner, our goal is to ensure that they call back within 5 minutes. But if they do not call back, please try to call again. Try to leave another voicemail. Like I said, the voicemails go to a committee. So if we see that there's a second voicemail, then the state directors and the executive directors will try to also help in making sure that we're responding and calling back um, any voicemails that are left. If still after 10, 15 minutes, nobody has called you back, please call your regional director, whether that's your clinical director, your state director. Please make sure you're calling that level of supervision. So it may not be your direct supervisor, team leads. We are not calling them. We're going to call the directors. And then last but not least, if you are working after hours or weekend, you should have already received approval to work after hours or weekends, but the incident hotline is not available after hours. So whoever you got approval from that director, that is the person that you would call. So please make sure that you receive that person's phone number. So if you have an incident, you're calling them and they're answering as soon as possible. So just to reinforce the timeframes, if you have any incidents that you need to report, that needs to be done in a very, very timely manner. The incident reporting timeframes is based off of state regulations, not necessarily ViaQuest regulations. So it's very important that you're following those timeframes. And then the reason why we do re-education is to show the state that we are rectifying any steps that were not followed correctly. So we are all mandated reporters, regardless of your position. We all have to report within a timely manner. And to reinforce that, it needs to be done within 1 hour. If we're directed to call any departments, which we're going to go through in a second, that needs to be done within 4 hours. And then the incident notification form needs to be turned in by the end of that business day. So whatever your work business day is, it needs to be turned in by the end of that business day. Okay. That incident notification form needs to be sent to the director that, or I'm sorry, the supervisor that was on the incident notification, I'm sorry, incident hotline, the QA and training director, which is myself, Gabrielle Bryson, and then also your clinical director, also your supervisor. So you are going to CC quite a few people on the incident report, making sure they're aware. I keep track of all of them. The incident hotline wants to make sure that you're reporting in a timely manner. And then your director and your supervisor, we want to ensure that we're providing support and follow up for you after an incident and verifying that there is 9 times out of 10 a safety plan in the client's chart. All right, so we're just going to do a quick refresher of all the different reporting departments to making sure that we know what we need to report accordingly. So starting with duty to protect and duty to warn, this is regarding violent behaviors towards others. So every single session, we should be assessing for homicide ideations, intent, means, and plans. It is super important that we are doing this every single session, assessing for homicide and suicide. What's important here is if a client does disclose any concerning information, that it is our duty that we need to report these concerns out. The way that we're going to do that is one of 3 options. So one option for this is really more so for NPs is going to be doing a pink slip. There's that policy procedure for them to follow if they need that. That is 12.09 involuntary hospitalization. This is for involuntary hospitalizations that NPs can do with their clients. Another option is that we potentially could do voluntary or involuntary hospitalization. This is the client maybe stating, I want to be hospitalized, or wants to do, again, doing some type of pink slip of involuntary hospitalization. Most commonly is this third one here for our staff members that are not NPs. 9 times out of 10, we're going to call law enforcement agencies or work with our facilities or our group homes on ensuring that we're making this phone call to the victim or to law enforcement to let them know these 3 things: the nature of the threat, the identity of the mental health client, so our clients, and the identity of the victim that they're threatening. So those things will need to be disclosed. When we're calling 911, if we're calling 911, we want to try to ask for a crisis team member, as they generally have a little bit more training of dealing with clients who have mental health issues than any other police officer. And so we want to try to make sure that we are doing that as much as we can, if possible. All right, so then if we're taking action, once we decide what action we're going to take, we need to make sure that we're documenting this appropriately. So in our progress notes, we should be saying what ideation that the client has or which homicide ideation, intent, means and plans, all that stuff in our progress note. And then we need to justify what choice that we took. Did we choose the pink slip? Did the client want to be hospitalized? Did we notify the victim to ensure their safety? And then why we chose not to potentially hospitalize. Did we do a safety plan? Is that documented? Did we making sure that items and objects are removed for it to reduce harm? That needs to all be documented within your progress notes. But keep in mind a PHI when disclosing. So making sure that only people on a need to know basis knows this information. So not everybody in the client's neighborhood, not all their family members need to know this. Only people who are involved in the situation for the safety of the victim and of the client is on a need to know basis. And then, as always, please call the incident hotline and they will tell you what is the best course of action and provide support during the incident there. For CPS, Child Protective Services, just a refresher on what is considered child abuse and neglect. So these are different aspects of what they consider child abuse. If the child is a victim of any type of sexual act, any type of sexual conduct, or any sexual contact is considered sexual activity. Being endangering the child, any inflicted physical or mental injury or death, suffers physical or mental injury that harms the child's welfare, and subject to out of home care child abuse. So once again, as a refresher, that means that you are subjecting or putting the child into harm's way, potentially having someone who watched them that has a history of potentially abusing kids. Now we're going to get into neglect as a reminder of what that means. Abandonment or abandoned, lacked adequate care due to faults or habits. So not providing that care to those kids due to a habit of like gambling or drug addictions or potentially mental health issue. Neglect refusing to provide necessities, education, medical, surgical care, or treatment. Just as it sounds, they're not making sure that the child is receiving the adequate care that they need. Refusing to provide special care due to mental conditions. Placed in temporary institutions or foster placement. So they're potentially just dropping the kid off. Suffers physical or mental injuries and subject to out of home care, child neglect. So same thing as the abuse. They're putting them into a situation that is not the best interest for the child. Excuse me. Now we're going to get into sexual abuse. Excuse me. So a reminder I forgot to say in the beginning is generally we want to be mindful that just because we see one of these things doesn't necessarily mean this abuse. Generally, it's going to be a combination of them. Also, especially for neglect, we always want to be mindful of culture and any type of social services items. So when we're working with clients, is this a potential need that they have? Does everybody not have a winter coat? Does everybody not able to shower and bathe because their water is shut off or because they don't have money to buy everybody coats? Or are they really just singling that maybe they do have the money and they're just really neglecting this child and not making sure that proper care is done? So what's important is knowing the difference between neglect and abuse. Okay. So getting back into sexual abuse here, these are some potential common signs and symptoms according to the state. Has difficulty walking or sitting, suddenly refusing to change for gym or participate in physical activities, reports nightmares or bedwetting, change in appetite, bizarre, unusual sexual knowledge or knowledge about sexual behaviors, contacting a disease and becoming pregnant before the age of 14, running away, reporting to an adult or a caregiver that they have been sexually abused, getting into emotional maltreatment. So generally, the child is going to exhibit over compliance, extreme passive or aggressive behaviors, inappropriate adult behaviors. This generally means or can exhibit frequent walking or head banging, where they feel like they need to be the adult themselves, parenting other children, delay in physical or emotional development, has potentially attempted suicide in the past themselves, and lacks attachment to their current parent or caregiver. All right, so once again, just to reinforce, we are all mandated reporters. We're required to report any suspected abuse and neglect. Just because we are reporting abuse and neglect doesn't mean we have to have proof of it. It is not our responsibility to conduct the investigation. That is CPS's job to do. If you're helping a client to do a CPS report, they can report anonymously. There is no repercussions for making the report and just the reinforcing with them. So if your client was saying, maybe their sister or their neighbor is doing abusive items, you can assist them and advocate in helping them doing that report. If you are personally doing the report on your client or for your client, you're going to disclose yourself that, hi, my name is Gabrielle Bryson. I am a ex worker at ViaQuest. I would like to make a reportable, I'm a mandated report. Okay. CPS handles incidents that are for children under the age of 18, or if they have a physical mental handicap, it will be for people who are under the age of 21. Let's get into APS, Adult Protective Services. So APS is on the other end of the spectrum. So they are going to JFS is over. Oh, I'm sorry. JFS is over APS, Job and Family Services, and they are in the other end of the spectrum, handling any reports regarding people who are over the age of 60 and older. Just as a reminder, people between 18 and 60 do not have a protective agency at this time in Ohio. What's important about for APS reports, it is people who are in danger of harm, unable to protect themselves, and no one to assist them. The most common reports is going to be exploitation and self-neglect, not taking care of themselves. If they're living with others, potentially abuse and neglect would be really common also. Ombudsman is different than APS. It is an advocacy group that works with home care agencies or assisted living and nursing homes. So they work with those providers and help families and clients or residents come to a resolution regarding their concerns. When we're in our contracted facilities, LTCs or ICS, we want to make sure that we are coordinating with them. Okay, so any concerns reported at the facility, you're still going to follow the reporting process. So you're still going to call the incident hotline and talk to them about whatever things that you have discovered. We are always wanting to try to resolve issues with the facility or ICF as soon as possible. Okay. Facilities and ICS usually do their own reporting. They have to report to the state when there's concerns brought in. And so we're going to coordinate with that DON, social worker, admin to ensure that are they aware of this incident already? And if not, what steps are they going to take to do the reporting and the investigation of that? We're still going to follow our same process that needs to be done within 4 hours. Then we're going to complete the incident notification form. That incident notification form needs to be sent to the person on the incident hotline by the end of that business day. Once again, you're going to CC myself, the QA and training director, your director, and then also if the facility would like a copy of it, then you will need to make sure you're putting secured in the subject line of the email. And we're going to review that at the end of this training. All right, so let's get into the DD, Developmental Disability Incident Reporting. Just to reinforce, you guys should be aware, people in the IDD sector should be aware of all the clients' ISP behavior support plans. You should have regular ongoing communications with their SSA or SAS or service coordinator, whatever you like to call them. I know it's different across the state. And having that regular ongoing communication. So when we're reporting incidents to the Board of DD, they're called MUIs. MUI stands for Major Unusual Incidents, and it is any alleged, suspected, or actual occurrence of an incident that adversely affects the health and safety of a client or an individual. When they are investigating and when they are reviewing incidents, they're going to look at these 3 things. So what immediate action was taken for future harm? What type of investigation was done to contribute to this incident? And then what preventive measures can we do to ensure that these occurrences don't happen again? Then the other thing that they're going to do is this an MUI or UI? So a UI is an unusual incident. Unusual incidents could be something as you'll see here on the screen, medication error without likely risk of health and welfare, falling, injury without any I'm sorry, injury without any significant injury. So like no blood, or needing emergency procedures, things like that. Behavior support plans is also another common one. So it may be an MUI for most, I should say normal or other clients, but maybe for that specific client, they have a behavior support plan. And so that would be an unusual incident and just be documented on their behavior tracking form. So if we're reporting incidents, the DODD regulates to each county to have their own MUI department. Okay. The local county board of DD is who's going to be doing that investigation. And so you want to make sure that you're calling if you're supposed to call in the county that the client resides in. So whatever county that the client lives in, that is the county you're going to call. And they're the ones that's going to do those three things I said: immediate action, investigation, and preventive measures. And we want to look at those three things. So we do have different procedures if it's a ViaQuest client or not a ViaQuest client. If you are working with someone who is with day services, residential services, home health care, central, this is one of the processes you're going to follow here. So you're still always going to call the incident hotline. That needs to be done within 1 hour. The supervisor on the incident hotline will work with you and also contact the management of our sister companies to discuss if this is a MUI or UI. If it is an MUI, our sister companies will take lead on calling MUI, and leading the investigation for all of our business lines. Okay. They will call within 4 hours to the MUI department. For us, all you will have to do is complete the incident notification form or witness statement. Sometimes they call it witness statement, and that will need to be turned in by the end of that business day. You're going to turn it in, all the people that we've done stated before. So the QA and training director, the person in the incident hotline, your direct director, and then in addition, you're potentially going to add in the management of that sister company. They gather up all the incident reports from their business line and our business line and send it all to the MUI line. Okay. If it's just a UI, then our sister company is going to document that in the client's chart of the incident that occurred there. Now let's get into non-ViaQuest clients. So if it is a non-ViaQuest client, maybe they're the different day services or they have a different residential provider, you're going to follow this process. So you're still going to call the incident hotline, and that needs to be done within 1 hour. When you're calling the person on the incident hotline, they're going to ask you a couple of questions. What does their ISP look like? Have you done any type of coordination with the provider? Are they aware of the incident that you disclosed already? Did they already report this incident, and do they have evidence of them reporting the incident? When did they call this incident in? Depending on your conversation with that provider will determine on the next steps. So if we can get a confirmation that they did do that report, that may be the end of it. But if not, 9 times out of 10, we are going to call MUI ourselves and report the incident. When we're calling or when you're calling MUI department, you're going to ask that person that you're talking to for their work email. When they're on the MUI incident hotline, they have kind of like a catch-all email address, but when we're sending it secured, it needs to be sent to an actual email address for the security of the actual email there. Okay, so that's what that last bullet is. Complete the incident notification form by the end of the business day. Put secure in the subject line and email of the email and CC the supervisor and on the incident hotline. And that is how you're going to send it to the MUI department. And that needs to be done by the end of the day. If this is your first couple incidents and you'd like the supervisor on the incident hotline or your direct supervisor to review it before you're sending it to the MUI department, please ask for that and they'll be more than willing to look at that before you submit it. All right, ODMHIS reports. Once again, that stands for the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. When it comes to OMAS reports, you're still going to follow all the reporting guidelines from the previous items that we did. But for this one, it's just a tad bit different. So we're going to review all the different incidents and then we're going to loop it around here. So what should I report? Abuse and neglect by staff members, including allegations of physical, sexual defraud or neglect, death of a client, suicide, if they successfully completed a suicide, accidentally on the grounds of any of our offices, or if there is a successful homicide by the client. It is very important to ensure that we are keeping up with our caseloads as long as the client is open for services, even if we're doing a bunch of non-billables. We want to make sure that we're documenting that. And like I said previously, we want to also document every session or every time that we talk to a client that we're assessing for homicide and suicide. We are considered still held liable for clients until they're completely discharged. And then we're going to review the charts on what preventative measures did we take to try to reduce the successful suicide or the homicide or accidental death on our property. Getting into medications, medication errors or adverse reactions that result in permanent harm or hospitalization or death. Death of the medication, and that is by anybody, employee, clients, others. Medication diversion. So this is referencing controlled substances that is being prescribed that is potentially given to another person. So that would be considered illicit use, and that is reportable. Selling drugs on our property, at our offices, and miss unaccounted medications. Next section here, sexual assaults that happens in session and or at our offices. Physical assault that also happens by anybody that causes an emergency or unplanned medical intervention or hospitalization. The next two, you're going to need approval from. So involuntary termination of treatment. So if you're discharging a client without appropriate and client involvement, you'll need to get approval from Ann Nash, who is the VP of Behavioral Health, or VPBS at this time, in order to do this type of discharge. And we'll have to do the documentation for that of the reasoning why we are terminating without appropriate client involvement. Okay. Medical event impacting provider operation. And so this is really going to be more so for administration to worry about. But any type of medical events that happen at the office that is going to prevent us from being able to provide services, we're going to do that reports. The only thing that you guys will need to worry about for this one and for this next one is making sure that clients are not coming to the office during those situations. So this next one is temporary closure of one of our offices with for at least 7 consecutive days or more. Once again, we will do this report if there's any concerns of why we can't utilize our building for any reason. We would report that to the state, and what your guys' duties will be is to ensure that you are finding a place in the community that is confidential to provide services there. The next couple of slides is going to be about seclusion and restraints. As a reminder, we are all Aegis trained to defend ourselves and help clients trying to verbally de-escalate a situation prior to any type of physical de-escalation. Okay. If you're working in any of our IDD sections, whether it's day services or residential, their staff members need to take lead on all seclusion and restraints. And it's going to be on a last resort if any of our staff members are assisting or participating in type of seclusion and restraints. If you are going to participate in seclusion and restraints, it is considered an incident report, and that needs to be following this reporting process. Now, these next couple slides here is on if seclusion and restraints are not being done correctly, then we have to report to the state. Okay, so if there's any incident or seclusions and restraints where that cause injury that requires first aid, emergency medical intervention, hospitalization, that results in death due to seclusions and restraints within 24 hours, they passed away within 24 hours, or any death related to or result of the seclusions and restraint. Use of the seclusions restraint by a provider without prior notification that the provider remits the use of the seclusions restraints, and inappropriate use, including the use of physical restraints, mechanical restraints, transition holds, or just seclusions in general. When we're doing restraints, we're going to need to know the time or how long the client was in the restraint. Then we're going to get to inappropriate use of the restraint techniques or other use of force. And this includes behavior management interventions, employing unpleasant or adverse stimuli, techniques that obstruct vision, drug or medications that is used as a restraint and not a standard treatment or dosage. And then last one here is any inappropriate use of the restraint, utilizing handcuffs or weapons, things that obstruct the breathing airways, restrict any type of communication, a mechanical restraint on kids under 18, and anything that would potentially re-traumatize the client. So as a reminder, you would do any reporting according to the previous ones, but for OMOS, the QA and training director, me, is the only person that can report to ODMHAS. So each organization has one person, and ViaQuest has chosen the QA and training director to do it. And so just as any of the reports, you're going to CC me on it, but I may be contacting you directly if there's additional information that I need to report to the state regarding the incident. So just be aware of that. Getting to CARF reporting, there's a whole list of reportable incidents here. I'm going to quickly review them for you. So when you're reporting for CARF, you're going to once again follow all the incidents beforehand. And then on your incident notification form, you're going to do APS and CARF or CPS and CARF or whatever you're going to do on the incident form. For CARF, we're just reporting the incidents for tracking purposes. So quickly going through these, medication errors is anything that is prescribed or administrating the cause of harm for the client to be hospitalized. We already talked about seclusions and restraints. I'm not going to go into that again. Incidents involving injury. So this is during session or at the offices. If the client or if you are being injured, you're going to be potentially doing an accident report. So you could potentially get medical attention if needed. Communicable diseases. Any type of disease while working that potentially could spread from person to person. You're going to report any of those type of concerns things. Same thing for infection control, any type of diseases that may spread from person to person. In the office, you're going to report that. Aggression or violence. If a client is being aggressive or someone in the office or around you is being aggressive, and that causes violence, you're going to report that as well. Then we're going to get into use and unauthorized possession of weapons. So during session or in the office, if anybody has weapons and utilizing them or having them, you're going to report that. Wandering is not really a huge item within ViaQuest. Clients roaming around the office or concerns of this is more so going to be, this is more so going to be for office. So if people are wandering around the office, concerns of PHI, of them being in places they're not supposed to be, please report that. Overdose, drug overdose, elopement. This one doesn't apply to ViaQuest. Vehicle accidents. So if you are, if you're getting in a car accident while during business hours or while working, this is also going to be reported to HR. You're going to get that accident report just like the other ones. And that will need to be turned in within 24 hours. So you and your supervisor, you will fill out the front side of it and your supervisor will fill out the back half of it. you will turn that in within 24 hours of the incident happening or as soon as possible. Biohazardous accidents in relation to, it's going to be more so to psych services than any other services, of potentially disposing of waste, injection information or things like that. If there's any concerns of that or any accidents that happened with that. Illegal or legal substances that are brought into the office or during session, you're going to report those items. Abuse and neglect, talked about that many times. Suicide and attempted suicide. So NPs, every time you do a pink slip, that needs to be emailed to myself. Everybody else, if there's any attempted suicide or an actual successful suicide, that will need to be reported just as all the other ones, especially for OMAS, we'll need to report that. Sexual assault, it's pretty straightforward there. Any type of sexual assault concerns, and any other concerns that is regarding the accessibility of services or professionalism that wants to be reported or needs to be reported. Then we're going to get into felonies and criminal acts. So anybody who is a physician, NP, LPCC, LPC, LASW, or LSW, these positions are licensed, they're privileged, excuse me, by the reasons of the therapeutic relationship on your discretion on if you're going to be reporting items or not. All other positions are required to report to law enforcement of any type of crimes, death, or burns of a client. In all situations, if it's an emergency, we're always going to call 911 and potentially provide first aid or CPR and work within our scope of practice. Okay. We're going to try to do the best that we can to help that person, being mindful of DNRs, and provide aid until emergency services arrive. But once the person passes away, we need to make sure that we are always calling 911, and that we are reporting all concerns to the police when they arrive. If it is one of our sister companies or facilities, as always, they're going to take lead in the reportable incidents to ensure that things are being done correctly. You, as it said for OMAS before, you're going to report that as soon as possible so then we can do our reporting also. But calling 911, calling MUI, or calling EPS, that is going to be on them to do. Last but not least is animal abuse. Okay, as a reminder, we are to report any animal abuse regarding companion animals. We're going to report to a police officer that is not a dog warden or deputy dog warden, and we're going to tell them our reasons or allegations of animal abuse. You will follow the regular reporting process of calling within 1 hour. I may not get ahead of, oh, no, I am getting ahead of myself. Calling within 1 hour. I'm sorry, calling the incident hotline within 1 hour, calling the police officer within 4 hours, and then doing your incident report form by the end of that business day. All right. Last but not least, we're going to get into the incident notification form. So on page 2 or the back of that form is going to be a lovely reminder of everything I just said. Okay. You need to call within 1 hour. They will tell you if you need to call APS or CPS. You need to do that within 4 hours. And then you need to coordinate with our sister companies or LTCs or whatever. And then you'll need to complete the incident report form by the end of that business day. As a reminder, put secure in subject line of the email when you're emailing outside of ViaQuest. So at the bottom of that page there is going to be a reminder of examples of what is considered a reportable incident and for you to fill out the front page of the type of incident. So on the front page on type of incident, you're going to put what's in bold: facility report, CARF, children, CPS, APS, MUI, or OMAS. Okay. Please review this handout of different reportable incidents. Facility clients, concerns or issues regarding staff, other clients, other facility issues, suicide, homicide, ideations, concerns that need to be documented, or any concerns that you need to report about the facility in general. CARF, CPS, APS, I already reviewed those earlier. MUI, those are the 19 different incidents. If you work in the IDD sector, please go to the policy procedure and read about each of those reportable incidents. OMOS, we also already reviewed that. So let's get into the incident notification form. At the top here, you're going to put your region that you're in, the date and time that you were notified of the incident. So date of discovery, time of discovery. This is going to be important. This is how we double check your time frames. Did you report in a timely manner based on when you were notified? Client name, age, address, guardian information. That all can be found in SmartCare if you don't know that. You're going to put your name on the next column here on staff completed the form. The provider, if you're working with anybody, so anybody that we're coordinating with, so if that's the facility, the day services, the residential provider, etc. Location of the incident, so where the incident took place, not where you had your session, but where the incident took place. And then the type of incident, so items in bold and type of incident. So once again, there's the items in bold from page 2. You're going to put that in that line here, okay? And then name of individuals involved and witnesses. So if other clients put initials, staff or other employees can be listed here too. Now let's get into the body of the incident form. So give details of what happened in session, describe a description of the issues, and ensure client is safe prior to calling the incident hotline. Can attach additional pages or Word documents if everything does not fit in this box. You should always contact the incident hotline and check the yes box, which is right here, yes box. Below, please electronically sign it and send it before you send it. You should have this red line here for you to be able to electronically sign it. If you're having issues with that, please contact the IT department and they will be happily to assist you on ensuring that you're signing that correctly. Then the next section is the follow-up and resolution section. So give information of the resolution. Notate if you contacted APS, CPS, MUI, etc. If there was any communication with providers to ensure the client's safety, please notate that here. Please also put if there is any follow-up that needs to be done. Contact the guardian, etc. What's really important here is that we're going to review if there was hospitalization, and if not, 9 times out of 10, we need to do a safety plan. And so we're going to review to ensure that is all documented here. So please make sure you're filling out this section. A common area that is not filled out or missed is this section, the notification section. So I'll need you to make sure that you're putting in whoever that you called on the incident hotline, put their name there, the date and time that you called them. And just as a reminder, everybody's phone will have the phone records of when you call them and the date and time there. So you can always reference back to that. I don't expect you guys to remember when you made all these phone calls. Please reference to your call log to document that. When you notified your clinical director and your direct supervisor, who did you call? APS, CPS, MUI, or LTC, if you were told to do so. And then making sure everybody on the team is notified. And then when did you notify them? And it could be via email, doesn't necessarily need to be a phone call. If that's the case, then just put that in those sections there. That bottom section there is only for the QA and training director to do. Okay, so you do not need to type your name there and you do not need to sign there. Last but not least, when you're sending a secured email, please make sure you'll see here in blue that you need to put it in all caps. It does need to be in all caps. So SECURE with the semicolons there, and then you can complete your email as normal. So before we end today, I hope that you don't have to do this training again. But to make sure that we're reinforcing the time frames here, please make sure this is your last chance of this training to jot down this phone number. Um, please have this phone number because when you're in an incident, it's not the time to look for the number. It's time to just call it. So please make sure you jot down this number and so that you can make that phone call within 1 hour of being notified of the issue. Once again, if they do not answer, please leave a voicemail and tell them to give you a call back. Leave your number and all that information there. If they do not call you back, if there is no answer, please try to call again within 10 minutes. They will try to call you back. Um, the people from the incident hotline is from across the whole state, so it's probably going to be an unknown number. It's not going to say ViaQuest. So please try to call back. They'll also try to leave you a voicemail telling you to call them back again. But you can try to call back if they don't within 10 minutes. As a last resort, please call your regional director to get the incident resolved. If you got approved to work after hours or weekends, please make sure that you have your director's number and ensure that you're able to call them. As a reminder, we are all mandated reporters, and so it is your job to ensure that you're reporting incidents. Call within 1 hour, call the department within 4 hours, and then turning in that incident notification form by the end of business day. I hope this was a good refresher for you. I hope that you understand the reporting process timeframes. If you still have any questions, please reach out to your supervisor and they can answer any question that you have. Or you can reach out to me, Gabrielle Bryson, via email. I hope that you have a great day and I hope that you don't have any two more major incidents where this is an issue. I wish